Hello and welcome to TidyX episode 30. We're already at episode 30. All right, TidyX is a screencast where we go through and explain how our code works and try to explain our programming concepts. My name is Ellis Hughes. I'm a stat programmer. You can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And my name is Patrick Ward. I do data analysis in sport. You can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick. You can find both of us on Twitter collectively at tidy_explained. Or if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us at tidy.explained@gmail.com. Okay, episode 30
Yes.
straight weeks. What have we got?
Oh, so I think we've got a pretty interesting one here. So as we all know, this past week there was a debate. At least everyone in the United States probably has heard about this. And so there are a lot of people tweeting about this. And so this week's Tidy Tuesday was using lyrics from Taylor Swift and Beyonce, and a lot of people did sentiment analysis, and we thought that was really interesting. But we kind of wanted to add a little bit of topical stuff to it and looking at what's going on currently. So Patrick went through and put together a script where he scraped a bunch of Twitter stuff, which is also an interesting concept, scraping and using an API to pull that data in, and then we did a little bit of sentiment analysis with that. So we'll kind of take you through the steps that we would follow to do that sort of analysis. Do you have any other comments as I bring up the code here?
No, I think that's about. I think that about hit it. I'm excited to see all the positive and negative words around the debate.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear about all this.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be making any comments about any other stuff. We're just looking at the data and the analysis here, so we're not politically charged.
There is no inferential analysis or statements, and nothing said here endorses either party from either of us.
Exactly. We just thought it was an interesting.
Simply for descriptive purposes, we wanted to evaluate how the world saw the debate, the first presidential debate.
Yes, and how the world saw it and then posted on Twitter.
Well, yes, correct. So we up front we're saying that we do have some selection bias because we're only curating the beliefs of those who have access to post on Twitter, which may not be everybody in the world.
Exactly. But let's get this thing started and kind of explain how we'd approach this process. All right. So first we have our little setup, our chunk here in our notebook that we always like to use. So we've got the setting the options here, so echo equals true, so it'll kind of print out the code as well. We've got our libraries, tidyverse, data manipulation extraordinaire, TidyText, which is an R package that is incredibly powerful for processing text data, and it's got a lot of really cool functions around that. We've got the rtweet library, and that's what we use to pull in the data from Twitter. And then we have the library here, which helps us set our file paths to make it easier because we're working inside of an R project. All right, so we load all those in. As usual, we set our theme to be theme light so that our plots kind of come out with a standard theming that we prefer. All right, so we've got that going. All right, so next piece is we get our data, right? So we pull that in, and the way we're going to do that is with the rtweet package. They've made it incredibly easy, like silly easy, to access the Twitter API and download data for you and take care of that. So I put in a little bit of infrastructure around this so that we don't hit the API a million times, because I'm sure Twitter doesn't appreciate that. And also for you, so you don't have to see us sitting around for about 45 minutes as we pull down all the data. So what we did here is we have a path to the RDS file. So RDS stands for our data structure. Anyway, it's an RDS file. That's how you save R objects typically. So you'd use the save RDS. Now, let me zoom in because I might be zoomed in a bit there. All right, there we go. So the save RDS function is used to save RDS files. What? And that helps you save R objects. I prefer RDS over RDA because RDA, when you read those in, they can overwrite things in your environment. Here you have to read it in and you assign it. Sorry, that's a bit of an aside. So we set up the path here to the file that we want to save it to. Next, I have this little bit of logic around there to make sure like I said, we don't just run everything a million times. And this is file.exists is a function from, I think, the utils package. So it's just like in your base R, file.exists. Let's see if the computer can bring that up. Well, let's not do double question marks. Yeah, from base. So it's from the base R pack. You don't have to do anything to install this. What this will do is it'll check on your file system to see if it can see that file. So my logic here is look to see whether the debate tweets RDS file exists. If it does, don't download. So don't worry about that. But say you're running this for the first time. This will come back as true because we have this exclamation point in front of it, which negates the logic there. So file.exist, if it doesn't find it, would turn false. This then says, oh, this statement is now true because of this exclamation point here. So then we're going to go in and start scraping some Twitter data. Patrick, do you want to take us through this piece?
Yeah. So this is the search underscore tweets function, which comes from that rtweet package that we loaded in. And this makes it ridiculously easy to pull tweets based on a hashtag of interest. So I set this up to do hashtag debate 2020 because that was kind of the popular hashtag for the debate. And the reason why I did that was I want to pull all tweets that include at least hashtag debate 2020. So there could be multiple hashtags in a tweet. The tweet could say multiple things, but as long as it had hashtag debate 2020, I wanted to know about it. I think originally I had that set to get 10,000 there in the little comment out at the top. We set this to 5,000 to really kind of beef it up.
50,000.
Oh, sorry, 50,000.
Yeah.
So we set it to 50,000 to really beef it up. We include retweets, we put false. So we don't want anything that's retweeted because we don't want to double count any of the tweets that we're looking at. And then the language we put was English so that we could obviously read it and do sentiment analysis in English. And then the retry rate limit equals true. That has to do with hitting the API.
Exactly. So the Twitter API limits the number of times you can hit it. So hitting it is kind of a term for I sent a request to their servers and they'll send something back to me. And that is a request. And most modern APIs have limits on them because they don't want people to just keep on spamming and hitting their API because that causes their servers to do stuff, right? And that takes compute on their side of things. And so they don't want people abusing that. So they put rate limits on it. And Twitter's rate limit is every 15 minutes you can do 18,000 requests, which is a lot. That's I mean, let's be honest, that's a lot of hits that I can put on their servers to pull out this information from them. But this rtweet has this nice feature, retry on rate limit, where it will automatically detect that I've hit that rate limit and won't error out. So normally these sorts of functions would error out or send a warning going, hey, you hit your rate limit, and then won't do anything else. This will just keep the function basically running. So if I wanted 100,000 or 200,000 tweets, that'll take a long time to do manually. This will take care of that for me, where it will let the function basically live on until it sees that I have my rate limit again and start scraping again. So that's kind of the nice piece of that. It does a bunch of under the hood stuff, but at the end of the day, it returns a data frame with a bunch of information and all the tweets, and we've got over 50,000 tweets.
It really is an amazing function to play with. If you have something that you're interested in, like sporting events, big time sporting events, you might use hashtag World Series and look at World Series type of tweets and things like that. It's definitely a super cool function to use and play with, and it's really dead simple. It's crazy.
It's so cool. So then we've loaded into debate tweets. Now we're going to save this as an RDS file, which is what I referenced earlier. So save RDS saves the file so we can use it later. The rtweets library and the Twitter API, unless you pay for a special access thing, it only gives you access to the last 7 days of tweets. So this way, if we come back to it in 2 weeks or so, we'll have the same tweets that we had before. So we're saving the object to be saved as this here, and then this second argument is the file path that we're saving it to, which is what we created up here, which is debate tweets RDS. So then we've got that file there. So then part of this logic here is now if we were to rerun this, it would see, oh, this file actually does exist. Don't run rtweet to pull all that information. Load it with read RDS. So this is the file path, once again, that the RDS is at, and it'll load it into debate tweets, which is the same object that we've used to save it as, so that this will basically return the same thing every time now. And so that's kind of a nice workaround to run something once. It takes a long time, but you don't want to have to change your code to like monitor, like, oh, this time I have it, this time I don't. This little if else kind of saves you a lot, and I use this a lot. All right, so then we'll take a look at the name. I gotta load it in. We're not going to run it this time because, like I said, it takes a pretty darn long time to load in the data. So this is really rich. It's got what, 90 columns.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Data.
Yeah,
like they give you a lot of stuff. There's a lot of information encoded in your tweets that you may not realize, like user ID, status ID, when that tweet was, what the screen name is, so who did it, what the actual tweet was, what you used to actually post the tweet. Like, they track that. So I think I saw, like, back in 2016, somebody did an analysis of where were tweets coming from Trump's Twitter account.
it was David Robinson.
Oh, it was? Yeah.
Because he tweets from 2 different phones.
And so they could see whether it was Android or iPhone. And he was trying to figure out, was this a campaign manager or was this Trump?
Yeah, so, correct.
I don't know. I thought that was really interesting.
It was like the ones that were from one of the phones was more divisive or something. Like, it was a fascinating
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. But yeah, they've got like the links, so this is incredibly rich. You can do so much with this data here. So that's pretty exciting.
Yep.
Alrighty, so now let's start taking a look at the data that we got, and before we actually do any sentiment analysis. So, which users were tweeted about the most? So we take debate tweets, we count on screen name. Oh, so this is which users tweeted the most.
Yeah.
So who is the most active tweeter?
Correct.
So count the screen name. So this is like your username. We'll get the top 20, and then we will show how much they tweeted. So set the X aesthetic to N, which is the number of tweets, and then reorder by screen name. So we've sorted it by the nice order there. So it looks like
Chef Tob.
He's tweeted a lot. Wow.
Really active.
Really active.
The debate. The one thing that's interesting about this, and maybe, I don't know, like, do people with what is it called when you have the blue check? You're like a verified.
Verified user.
I wonder if those people get included, or in some way their tweets don't get stored in the same manner, because I find it so curious that there's nobody on here that we would, like, someone like Anderson Cooper, Jim Acosta, like there had to have been someone that was tweeting, like, look at the bottom there is under what, 30 tweets. There has to be someone from the media that was super, that was active and and so I find it weird that there's nobody on that list that was like,
filter. I think there's verified.
Oh, is there? Yeah, that's what I was curious about.
Verified equals true, maybe. Let's
see what happens.
Let's actually do take a look at that. Yeah,
okay, so there's
equals true.
Verified folks.
Actually, I think we can just do that.
Because it's okay, there we go. Factcheck.org. Okay. Anybody from the Sun, US, Dr. Jason Johnson. Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. This is just an interesting way to look at the data.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah.
Alrighty, cool. All right, so then obviously Twitter's across the world. So what countries were people tweeting from? So this is user information that is reported by the user itself or themselves for their profile. So it can be blank, So there's some bias in this also because not everybody puts it the same way. Not everyone records it the same way. But let's see what's going on here.
Not everyone records their country because they don't want us to see it on our screencast.
Exactly. They don't want to share with us. So unsurprisingly, the United States tweeted the most, which, you know, you
that
kind
is
of
a
expect
log
that.
scale. That is a log scale on the yeah. So
yeah, we looked at it without log scale, and it was just like America.
Yeah.
Everyone else. So we thought this would be a good way to kind of bring it down a little bit so you can actually see the numbers of the smaller, or the countries that didn't tweet as much. Canada and UK were tweeting a fair amount here at 100. Nigeria, South Africa, Ireland, Kenya. It's just interesting the way that it went down like that. India, Pakistan. So
few from Mexico. I find I would have thought the top three. I get the UK. I would have thought the top three would have been North America, like Mexico, the US, and Canada would have been the most aggressive, just tweeting. But I find that interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So that was kind of a fun way to look at it. But okay, now which states in the U.S.? Where were people tweeting in the U.S.? Because we've obviously got the most tweets. So we're going to filter where location is not blank. So they have to have been recording a location, and the country was United States. So this shows here. Let's look at this.
And it's actually misleading. It's not states. It's actually cities within states, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's like there's Chicago, Illinois, New York, USA. So it's however somebody decided to code it. Maryland. So there's like some states. There's some cities. So it's however it was coded. So this is kind of messy. So you can see New York was listed a couple different times.
Yeah, you got New York City. You have New York City spelled out. You have New York, USA. You have Brooklyn, New York. And then you have just New York, which could be in the city or it could be. I generally feel like anybody who says they're from New York means that they're from one of the boroughs, the New York City, Manhattan, Queens, Bronx, Brooklyn, or Staten Island, one of the five boroughs.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is pretty interesting to see.
Or like Chicago, Illinois. So there definitely could be a fair amount of cleaning that you throw into this, where you look to see whether Texas, whether that if you got to decide a direction you want to go in.
Yeah.
And then there's probably a fair amount of manual labor that has to go into. Okay, pull out this. This is case when, grapple, do all these things there.
Yeah.
But it could yield some interesting data, like the sentiment. Now that we've got all these things, you can look at the sentiment of each states. So maybe if you're a political advisor or something like that, you could use this to then go. I mean, they probably got loads of other data elsewhere. So I don't know if this is the right way, but they could go through it in if there's a battleground state or something like that, they could then use this to go, oh, their sentiment is not good here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Like Ohio, Michigan, some of those states that are generally can kind of move one direction or the other based on partisanship. It would be interesting. You could track them over time and look at the sentiment of the again sample size, selection bias, the sentiment of the people that are on Twitter and actually tweeting about these things. You can certainly use that as maybe a proxy for how the state will behave on election day.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's just it's kind of a cool way. It's like I said, just very rich information. All right. So then we are also curious what hashtags were showing up commonly with Debate 2020. So, when you tweet, people don't tend to just use one hashtag. They'll use multiple. So we're going to go through and pull those out of the data set here and do some plotting. So we're going to do an unlist on debate tweets $hashtag. So this is debate tweets hashtags is a vector, or inside each element is a vector.
Yeah.
That's part of a list. It's a list call. It's kind of a weird concept. But what we're going to do is we're going to call unlist on it. So it's going to then turn it basically into a really long vector. Of all the values that exist and concatenate them all together. So we're going to throw that into a data frame. We're going to use count to count the number of times each hashtag exists. But we're going to filter because we don't want to use Debate 2020 in this plot because, let's be real, that's in every plot or in every tweet because that's what we searched for. That was our search parameter.
Yeah, that's the condition that we pulled the data in. So
Exactly.
basically what this is telling us isn't necessarily that obviously debate 2020 would be the most used hashtag. It's what is the most used hashtags that accompanied hashtag debate 2020, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so we're going to filter on the top 25 here. So top N tweets. Throw it into ggplot. The x-axis is the number of the count. We're going to set y to be the reorder hashtags because we want it to be kind of sorted nicely. And the geom call is the columns that are going to set the columns. Right there, just to make sure that we explain this. And there we go. So the second most tweeted hashtag is presidential debate.
Go figure.
What is this? Or debates. So interesting. People were using similarly worded hashtags multiple times. So like debate 2020, debates 2020, presidential debate 2020. So they were really trying to mesh those two together. Biden-Harris 2020. So that edges out Trump for the count. So maybe more Biden supporters here on Twitter. Shut up, man.
That's great.
Yeah, people got excited about that one. What else? What do you see?
You start to get into obviously election 2020, Trump, Biden Harris 2020 and Trump 2020 are not uncommon to see. Those obviously show people's affinity towards one candidate or the other. You get into some of which we'll look at here with sentiment, some of the more negative things like Trump meltdown, hashtag Proud Boys, which was a big topic during the debate that was talked about. Vote him out. You start to get into some of the more negative things. Obviously, COVID-19 was a big topic in the world and going into the debate. So then you also start to get into things like Biden won the debate. We start to see from this some of the sentiment starting to come through, which is kind of what we'll jump into.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So then we're gonna. So now we've kind of looked at this. As you just discussed, we're gonna look at sentiment analysis of these tweets. Mm-hmm. So this data set's rather large. We don't really need to deal with all the fields that it has, so we're going to subset it down into the fields that we actually really care about for sentiment analysis, which are the screen name, so the user, country, so where the country that they're at, location that they report, and text. So we'll just kind of subset that using select. So we get this, so now we have a smaller data set here. And we can do a debates. We'll just do a head here just to see what's going on, even though I just kind of printed that out. So Patrick, what is sentiment scores? How do we do this?
How did we do these? Right. So we're actually going to use a really handy, we're using the TidyX package. And in episode 2 on wine ratings, we did a bunch of sentiment analysis regarding wine ratings and how people describe wines when they taste them. I highly recommend the website there, TidyTextMining.com, which is the book by Julia Silge and David Robinson. I think it's really useful for projects like this. The sentiment scores are basically, we're going to use 2 types of sentiment scores that provide us a sentiment lexicon that allow us to describe the words as either positive or negative. The first one we use is AFIN, or for affinity, which basically scores a positive or negative affinity on a scale from -5 to 5. So those are integer values. There's no halves or anything like that. It's -5 to 5. And then we also use the lexicon from Bing, which is simply a binary categorization of looking at the word and saying, yes, this is a positive word, or yes, this is a negative word. And we use both of those just so that we can look at this data in a few different ways as we kind of explore it. So we have our debate small data set that we created just in the code chunk above. And we're going to mutate and add in the tweet ID. So we want to make sure we retain that for purposes that you'll see later on. And the first thing that we need to do, though, is we need to unnest the tokens. So we want to take the words, or we want to take the text, and we want to unnest those words. And what that's going to do is it's going to create this massively long data set where each row is a tweet and a tweet ID and a word from the text. And that's going to allow us to then use the two lexicons that I just explained to rate those words as either being a positive or a negative sentiment. So rows 50 to 100. Okay, there you go. Yeah, so the first one right there, screen name Jay Gervin, had 6 words in his tweet ID number 2, that were rated for sentiment. So news, looks like Wall Street Journal kind of abbreviation, poll, HTTPS.
This was just unnested. This wasn't.
Oh, sorry.
This doesn't have the sentiments in it yet.
We haven't brought in the sentiments yet. Okay, let's do that, and then we'll kind of look.
So the way. All right, go for it.
Yeah. So we're gonna take those unnested words. We unnested every word, and we're gonna inner join. So remember, left join would keep everything in the left data frame and only find matches in the right. We're gonna do inner join, which says find me the matches between both of these data sets and keep those. So we're going to take that tokens, unnested tokens data frame that we just created, and we're going to inner join to the AFIN lexicon, and then we're going to inner join that to the Bing lexicon. So now we have only the words that could be rated with a sentiment value and with a binary sentiment as being either positive or negative. So here, screen name Drun007 from Dallas, Texas, had 3 tweets, and he probably said, he had 1 tweet ID 3. He probably said something like, "This debate is funny as hell," which gave him a positive on the funny and a negative on the hell.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking for some random tweets for us to look at. Spectator Greg, Chaos
from Kent, which
could be a lot of different places. I don't think it's a Kent that we know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know where that would be.
80.
Okay, from someone tweeting from Martha's Vineyard, right? Good. This is a mess. This is embarrassing. Oh, this debate is crushing. So obviously that's sentiment that is less directed at one of the people doing the debate and probably more directed at the debate as a whole.
Yeah.
Which there were a lot of those. We'll look at the words here in a second. But.
Yeah, and we'll discuss some more things to be aware of as you're doing text analysis to be just aware of. So we're going to do a quick histogram of the scores so we can see kind of the general distribution. This is based on the lexicons themselves. This isn't our assessments of it. So token sentiment, we're going to put the x-axis to be value, which is the score from AFIN, set a GM histogram. We're going to scale continuous between -5 and 5, so we get breaks at each of the scores you can get. And we're just going to remove the panel grid minor x. So the minor x lines that appear in ggplot, it didn't add any value to this plot here, so we got rid of those. So this is what we got here. So there's definitely a bimodal distribution here. You know, you've got the negative values and the positive values. Most kind of are around 2 or -2.
Are there any, I'm curious though, in the AFIN lexicon, are there any values of 0? Like I
do not know.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
We can do a quick.
And if we do that and we just like table values from the AFIN.
Value table.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, there's 1.
There's 1. Okay, so these are so similar to the Bing, which is the Bing lexicon, which is binary of plus or positive or negative. It looks like AFIN is
some kind.
The word some kind, or the phrase some kind. It looks like AFIN is scoring these values, but it is binary within their scores. Like you're either some gradation of positive or some gradation of negative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool.
Alrighty. So based on the lexicon of Bing, what were the words that were most positively used inside of our tweet corpus that we have here? So what we're going to do is we're going to take the token sentiment data set again. We're going to count based on word and sentiment. So sentiment was once again from Bing. And sort equals true. So we're going to then reorder it based on that. We're going to keep only the cases where the word is considered positive, and what are filtered to keep the top 10 of those. We're going to throw that into a ggplot where x is the counts that we had for that word, so the number of times that word appeared, and the y-axis is going to be the actual word itself, and we're going to sort it to be based off of the number of times. So it's just like it's a nice ordered bar chart, essentially, with geom col, which is the lines, or the columns that we see. Alrighty. So the most common word that would be considered positive from tweets is like, which I don't know what that would be out of, or phrase that would be out of.
I like this candidate. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think. Yeah. Proud. Okay, so this is an interesting one. Proud as a word by itself, because remember when you unnest tokens, you're getting those individual words that we're then interjoining to the lexicons that we use. Proud is a very positive word. However, within the context of this debate, Proud Boys is more of a negative type of thing, I guess, within the context of how it was being used. So there's probably some work that we would have had to have done to ensure that the lexicons were classifying the phrase Proud Boys and the way it was being used versus the word proud in and of itself, which has a very positive very positive score.
Exactly. And the way you might go about doing that is using n-grams. So n-grams means you're looking at the number of words around the specific word that you're interested in, and using that as context to then drive the sentiment or your understanding of the particular word that you're looking at.
Yeah.
So you could, like, one way to think about it is think of like not proud, because the sentiment analysis as we have it, looking at each individual word, proud is seen as positive, but there's a word in front of it that flips the value of it, and we're not taking that into account.
Right. Like it would have probably been something with this debate like denounce Proud Boys, or, within the context of how it was being used for, within this debate, it would have been something around that, like denounce, or there would have been a negative word that preceded that phrase.
Exactly.
And that's what we would have looked at.
Yeah.
The other words are kind of things that you'd expect, like, okay, one, like Trump won or Biden won, Trump did better or Biden did better, Biden was good or Trump was good, someone was the best, what kind of support do you have? Like, these are all words that you'd expect as, positive within the context of something like this.
Yeah.
Let's look at the negatives.
All right, so let's take a look at that. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before, but now we're going to use a sentiment equals negative. So look at that. Alrighty. Oof.
Shit is the first word.
Well.
So there's the second word there, condemn. That would have been like preceding the Proud Boys, right? Condemn the Proud Boys. I think it was condemn white supremacy or condemn racism or something was a phrase. Racism is actually in there towards the bottom.
It's the third word as well.
It's the third word. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it there.
So
lost, looks lost up there. Bad. This is bad. Denounce is a word we just talked about. Bully was one. Trump was, speaking over the top of people, and there were people commenting that he was being a bully. There's the F word in there. This is a family show, so we won't say it. This is okay. So then you start to get into some other things that are kind of descriptive of the event as a whole. Like, this is a bit of a mess. I'm undecided. This is sad. Embarrassing. Like, these are all kind of negative words, as you would expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like it's important to understand when you're doing sentiment analysis, like context, and understand everything that's going around with it. I think that's a thing, which is why it's difficult. Language is difficult.
Yeah, rarely would you ever be able to simply take the words as they are and just do the analysis and be done with it. There's a lot more work that could be dumped into this, certainly, and it would probably be very interesting and useful.
Yeah.
So the last thing that we wanted to do was just kind of look at the average score by country. And we're going to look at average in two different ways, two different types of averages, quote unquote. If you've ever read the old school book, How to Lie with Statistics, it's a nice little read that talks a little bit about this. So first thing we wanted to do was we wanted to find the top countries, which did we use? Yeah, we did. So the top countries, we're going to take our debate tweets. We're going to count the country number and sort equals true to get the top ones. We're going to filter out any of the NAs, and we want to get the top 3 names. So we're going to pull just that column, and that's going to turn that into just a vector of those top 3 countries for us. Yeah. And we'll use that in a filter in the next code chunk.
Yep. So like the plot that we had earlier, the top 3 countries that we're tweeting that people had given a country to their profile was United States, Canada, and United Kingdom. So we're going to use those. We're essentially going to be doing a factor lump in the next step here, but factor lump wasn't working for NA when we were doing it. Maybe somebody can explain why. Maybe we're just dumb. I don't know. But we're kind of going to do our own version of factor lump here. So we're going to take the token sentiment data set here. We're going to throw it into a mutate where country is now going to be recoded such that when country is one of the top countries, the top 3 countries, so United States, Canada, United Kingdom, it keeps its value as that country. However, any other case, so any other country that we look at is going to be coded as other. And so that includes NAs. And so this could be biasing or changing how you look at it, because there could be people in those 3 countries, in the US and Canada, in the United Kingdom, that are tweeting, but they don't have their country assigned. And we don't know that. So that's just a thing to keep in mind when we're looking at this. So next we're going to do a group by. We're going to group by country and tweet ID. So tweet ID is the value that we gave earlier, which allows us to then go back and find the actual tweet itself and figure out which words go together for that tweet. Because what we're going to do is we're first going to do, or I guess we really didn't need to do a group by country first. We could have just done group by tweet ID, because what we're trying to do here is get the sentiment by the tweet.
Yeah, I think we had to do the group by country because we did a summarize.
Because we want to keep country.
Yeah, because we need to keep the country in the database.
That's why we were doing it, yes. So we're going to get the average, for the tweet, the average sentiment that exists. Right, and that's kind of
tweets have multiple words, and multiple words have multiple scores.
Exactly. So we're going to get the average of that just to get a summary statistic for each tweet. And then we're going to throw it into another group by, and this time we're going to do it by country. So we're going to then take it up from, okay, this is the average, or the tweets sentiment, to what is the average tweet sentiment of a country, right? So we're going to send it into group by, use summarize, and we're going to look at it in 2 different ways. We're going to use mean of the average sentiment tweet and median of the average sentiment tweet. So we're going to get the mean or median, and median of the 2 of the tweets there. So then we're going to throw it into a pivot longer, and this is for plotting purposes so that we can do something in a sec. But let's quickly just take a look at the actual values that we have here. So, all right, so we've got country, Canada, other, United Kingdom, and United States. Mean sentiment of the countries are all negative, but they're kind of varying levels of negative, where the United States is the most negative. Then it's other, so all other countries or all other places, people that didn't define a location.
Or some that did define a location, but were in smaller contributing countries.
That's true. Yeah. Then there's the UK, and then there's Canada. So Canada's still nice.
They're such friendly people up there.
And then there's the median sentiment, which I think it's interesting that the UK median sentiment was 0, but like the United States is negative 66 or 0.66, others negative 0.66, and Canada's negative 0.33. So I'm not quite sure immediately how to interpret that. Patrick, we discussed this a little bit.
I wonder how it would have changed if we actually did the average sentiment tweet as the median tweet for the person. So the mean is the actual like arithmetic mean, right? It's the sum up everything and divide by n type of thing, right? One of the 3 Pythagorean means. And when you have these positives and negatives, they're going to cancel each other out if you take the mean of that, which is why things get kind of clustered towards 0. The median is often a summary stat that is used as sort of an average, quote unquote average as well, but it's not sensitive to outliers. It's going to be like a middle value, right? So if you think about something, the most common example that people use for median is household income, where most of the people are clustered down on one side, and then you have a few extremely, extremely wealthy people. If you use the mean, it's going to draw the population, the household income up near like 90 or 95,000, which we know isn't true. If you use the median, it's probably back down near like 30,000, right? Something more realistic. So the reason for doing this was to just show the way that these two average values, quote unquote average values, behave and can tell a bit of a different story. With the average sentiment of each tweet, because a person can, in theory, have, let's say, 5 or 6 words in that tweet that get graded a sentiment value, it is entirely possible that they have, which I think we saw in one of the examples that you pulled out, there was like, 5 or 6, the individual from Martha's Vineyard that you had pulled out, there was like 5, 3 or 4 words that were incredibly negative and 1 word that was positive. But within the context of that whole tweet, that incredibly positive word was probably more stated in a negative sense. But as a word itself, it was like a 4, right? So it would have taken all those negative values and it would have shrunk them close to 0. So I'm closer to 0. So I'm curious what would have happened if we had changed this around.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it, but it is something to think about when you present things like this. Is there's different ways of showing summary statistics that.
Let's quickly.
Oh, there we go. So now it's negative 1, negative.
So this is the median.
Well, this is the median of the
medians.
Yeah.
Which I feel like we're breaking some rules here.
Yeah, we probably are. Well, we're trying to look at it in
different ways.
Different ways, yeah. Which is.
So it's still overall negative.
Right.
So that hasn't changed, and I don't think the mean sentiment changed all that much.
No,
it's the median where Canada is now closer to 0 because there was no values.
Exactly. That's right.
Let's switch it back. Let's actually make the final plot
and then make the plot. Yeah.
Let's make the plot. All right. So now we've got this data set here. Ignore the actual.
What happened?
Oh, there we go. Ignore the actual values here. They're going to go back to what they were before. But what we're going to do is we're going to pivot longer so that we get a column for mean sentiment country and median sentiment country, and then a column that has the values. So these values and these values there. So we'll just quickly throw that in there, and then so I defined it as, so I'm going to take mean sentiment country and median sentiment country, set those names to then be in the stat names to stat. So the names go into the stat column and the values go to value, which is this column here. We're going to then throw it into ggplot where the x is going to be the value and y is going to be the country. So country here, value here. We use geom call. We're going to fill it to be, so the color is going to be pale. The outline is going to be pale green. The color is going to be black. And alpha is 0.4. So I always mix those up.
The fill of the column will be pale green. The outline of the column of each bar, the outline of each bar will be colored black,
Yeah.
which would be the same as the background of the plot itself.
Then we're going to do Gmv Line, which is going to draw a vertical line. We're going to draw that at an x-intercept equals 0, so it's going to be a vertical line at 0. It's going to be red, and it'll be slightly wider line at 1.2. We're then going to facet, because we've got the median and the mean. And we were kind of curious, like we did with the when we printed out the data frame there, we kind of wanted to see them side by side on a plot. So we're going to do facet grid tilde stat, so then it'll separate it into the two stats. We're going to set the theme to be classic, and then we're going to do a little bit more manipulations of the theme itself to make it how we kind of want it to look. So the panel grid major X, so the X major lines are going to be white, element line color white. Plot background, we're going to set that to be black. The panel background is also going to be black. The axis text, so the text along the axes are going to be white and bold, and a text size of 12. The axis title, we're going to set that to be white as well, and the so the text is going to be bold and the size of 15. The plot title, so the title of the plot is going to be size 20 and white text, and then the subtitle is going to be size 17 with color white text. We're going to set our X limit, so how far along the X we allow it to view. We're going to set it to be -1 to 1. Because we know that the sentiments are all going to be within that, and we just wanted to keep that standard. And then we're going to set our labels. So the x-axis label is going to be average sentiment. The y label, or the y-axis, won't be labeled. The title will be average #debate 2020 sentiment. And the subtitle is really, it's the top 3 countries and other.
Yeah.
So let's quickly update that. And now let's look at the final plot that we've got going on here.
Hey, there we go.
Alrighty. So you can see it's what we discussed earlier, where it's all negative. The United Kingdom's median sentiment is around 0 there, so the tweets that you're seeing on one side for both positive and negative based on the lexicons were roughly evenly distributed. Though if you look at the mean, it's going to be more negative. The other is definitely more negative, as well as the United States, based on median. Canada. Do you have any other comments there?
Kind of is what it is. It seems like people were generally negative about the debate as a whole.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. But
yeah.
That's the world we live in. So. But yeah, I guess we'll call it here. Yep. So my name is Ellis Hughes. You can find me on Twitter at Ellis_Hughes.
And I'm Patrick Ward, and you can find me on Twitter at OSPPatrick. And you can find our screencast on Twitter at tidy_explained. Or you can email us if you'd like to get in touch with us and maybe have some ideas on things you'd like to see. We like getting emails and feedback. tidy.explained@gmail.com.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Definitely go vote and keep on exploring your world.